Hey Gandalf, do you know what we're unboxing today?
A Balrog. A demon of the ancient world.
That's right, Gandalf. Today we have the Asmus Toys Balrog. This is a limited articulated action figure from Asmus Collectible Toys. I'm actually pretty excited about this because it'll be my first Balrog, and Asmus has delayed shipping this, but it's finally here, so let's get into it. Something I'd like you to keep in mind as I unbox this is that the figure cost $120. Sort of. I'll explain later. So it comes with a pretty cool looking display base, but I seem to have some trouble getting it to go onto the pegs, so we'll circle back to that and start with the face instead. So, not bad. I think it very clearly looks like a Balrog. Balrogs are pretty abstract, so I think it might be hard to point out if a wrinkle is in the wrong place. Although I will say the paint application makes it look much more shiny than I would prefer, but for the price, I think it's not bad. Here are a few more Balrog statues for comparison. Obviously these are clearly better, but again, for the price, this isn't bad. I want to thank Haunt of the Collector and N2Darkness for sending me these photos. By the way, if you are not subscribed to either of these guys, please do so. They make Lord of the Rings content as well, and you don't want to miss it. So, this guy is very shiny, and I think unfortunately that gives it a very toy look. That being said, this is not a statue, but it is labeled as an action figure, because if you remember, I said that he is articulated. You could move his arms and legs and head and tail, though if I'm honest, I don't understand why. He's already posed in a very particular way that makes the ability to move his arms and legs sort of useless. Not to mention, his legs sort of lock into place if you were to put him on the base, which you sort of have to or it will fall over. If he was in a more base state that would allow you to pose it like other Asmus figures, I think this is pretty cool, but given his overall pose, it's just sort of useless to me. His wings look pretty good. They've got all kinds of sculpted detail and wrinkles, as you would expect. Again though, I just wish it wasn't so damn shiny. Underneath the shine though, I think the body overall has a nice paint job. It's cool to see the painted red glow between the cracks of his skin. I guess I never paid much attention to the Balrog's feet, but wow, is this wild. Toes with long nails on top of hooves. Freaky. Even his fingernails have the red glow. It makes me really curious to know the painting process for something like this. So I know I've complained about the shine, but I actually do think the shine looks okay on the sculpted fire. I've never been a big fan of any sculpted fire, to be honest, but I guess it's kind of hard to make a sculpt of a Balrog without it. It would have been really cool though if they could have maybe put an LED in there, but I guess that's okay. I do prefer this way of doing the fire over, say, the figures of Fandom Witch King. This piece would have been so much better without it. The base. Let's just say it looks much better than it feels. It feels cheap. It's extremely lightweight, and the reason why is because the underside is concave. I think the texture on the ground and the pillar are well sculpted, and really help to tie in the Khazad-dûm setting, but I think having a slightly heavier base would have given a much needed sturdiness to this. After my struggle earlier to put the Balrog on the pegs, I decided to give myself a bit of help and ended up using a small amount of WD-40. Even with that, though, it was extremely hard to put his feet down on the pegs. Literally, after much effort, he's still actually floating. It worries me a bit, though, that one day I may end up breaking something if I try to remove him. Just gonna have to be really careful. And now for one of my biggest disappointments, his whip. So, straight up, the shape of the whip does not match the directions. Besides it being somewhat difficult to put into his hand, it's curved differently, and because of that, it's difficult to find a way to position the whip so that it doesn't touch his leg, tail, or other hand. And again, this is another reason why this guy being articulated doesn't make that much sense to me. Speaking of things in the wrong shape, the tail also doesn't match the directions. It's supposed to go out much further and give a bigger distance between the whip, but for me, the tail and the whip just sit right next to each other. Yes, I know the Balrog can resist fire, but still I'd prefer it if it wasn't so close. I did eventually figure out a way to have them not sit directly on each other, so I guess that's one point to the articulation. But again, why have it articulated if it can only look good in one way? This eventually led me to going and again looking at the preview photos of the Balrog online to ultimately realize just how much this actually differs from the photos that I saw more than a year ago when I pre-ordered this. The fire looks different, the paint looks different, the wings are at a completely different angle, his face seems to be looking down as opposed to somewhat forward like the photos. It just all around doesn't resemble what I ordered. And now to talk about the worst part of this. Remember that price that I gave you earlier of $120, sort of? Well, although the price on their website does indeed say $120, I actually paid in total $309.60. Yes, this image shows $289, but Asmus takes $20 to secure your pre-order, so this was the remaining balance that I had to pay for them to ship it. I don't know if perhaps they realized during production that it cost too much to make, and they didn't want to back down on the price, so they just decided to increase the price of shipping to make up for it. Who knows? Usually things from Asmus cost about $20 to ship, and I know this is a bit of a bigger box, but $189 to ship is sort of crazy. I agreed to do it because I had been waiting so long for this to finally arrive, and I really wanted a Balrog, and from the photos, it looked pretty good. But that's not what I got. So, overall, I'm not happy with this. It's too shiny, doesn't look like the preview photos, the articulation seems useless, the base is cheap, it's hard to attach his feet, the whip is frustrating, and it cost $189 to ship. What this has ultimately taught me is that I want a different Balrog. This is disappointing. If I would have paid $120 plus, say, $30 to ship, like most things Asmus, I would be giving this a 5 out of 10. But since the price to ship was insane, and to me this is not worth it, I give this a 3 out of 10. Sure, with some low-level lighting and red lights, you can make it look much better. But this is not what I wanted. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button or consider subscribing. Happy New Year, everybody. Until next time, I'm Ryan the Cyber Hobbit. Bye-bye.